Tractate Beitzah, page 36, A. Top of the page. Okay, part 1. With the words Hasam Tanan, please excuse the noise, we're working next door. The Gemara poses another question with regard to the same issue. We learned elsewhere at the end of the Mishnah cited above concerning clearing out sacks for guests and study, but one may not clear out a storeroom. And Shmuel said, what is the meaning of but not a storeroom? It means, but one may not clear out a storeroom. And Shmuel said, what is the meaning of but not a storeroom? It means, but one may not finish clearing out the entire storeroom while clearing out the sacks, exposing the floor of the storeroom. The reason this is prohibited is lest you come to level out depressions in the dirt, floor of the storeroom, which would constitute a biblically prohibited labor. What would be the halacha here with regard to lowering the produce from the roof on a festival to prevent its ruin in the rain? It is prohibited also in this case to remove all of it and thereby expose the floor of the roof. The Gemara specifies the possible arguments. Perhaps it is there on Shabbat that it is prohibited because punishment for Shabbat desecration is severe, but on a festival which has a lighter punishment for desecration, it is acceptable. Or perhaps it can be argued to the contrary. There, in the case of the sacks on Shabbat, even though there is suspension of study in the study hall, in other words, the clearing out facilitates the mitzvah, you say that they did not permit exposing the floor. Here, in the case of lowering produce on a festival to prevent its ruin, where there is no suspension of study in the study hall, clearing out the produce does not facilitate any mitzvah. Is it not all the more so prohibited? The Gemara poses a further question. And here we learned in the Mishnah, one may lower produce through a skylight on a festival. And they lowered him through the roof. And Rav Nachman said they taught this halacha only with regard to the same roof. In other words, only if the skylight is in the same roof where the produce is located. But to carry the produce from one roof to another roof in order to lower it through a skylight in the second roof is not permitted. This would involve too much exertion to be permitted on the festival. And the ruling is also taught in Beitzah, one may not carry from one roof to another roof, even when the two roofs are on the same level, and there is no extra effort of lifting or lowering the produce while transporting it between the roofs. The question arises there, in the case of moving sacks on Shabbat, for guests study, what is the halacha? May the sacks be moved from one roof or house to another for this purpose. Perhaps all the more so they may not be moved on Shabbat. Perhaps all the more so they may not be moved on Shabbat because Shabbat is more severe than the festival. Or perhaps it can be argued to the contrary. It is here with regard to a festival that it is prohibited to transfer from one room to another because a festival is regarded lightly by people, and they might consequently come to belittle it on Shabbat, which is severe in people's eyes, and so they will not come to belittle it. It is acceptable to transfer even from one house to another. Or perhaps, it may be argued, O Dilma, or perhaps, it may be argued if here, in the case of clearing produce from the roof, where there is the issue of loss of the produce, you say he may not transfer from one roof to another, then there, in the case of moving sacks on Shabbat for guests or study, where there is no issue of loss, of produce, is it not all the more so prohibited? The Gemara presents another dilemma. Here, with regard to bringing produce into one's house from the roof, we learn in the Beitzah, if there is no skylight from the roof to the house, necessitating another method of moving the produce out of the rain, he may not lower them by means of a rope through the windows, nor may he take them down by way of ladders. There, with regard to moving sacks on Shabbat, what is the halacha? May they be moved by ropes or using a ladder? Perhaps it is only here, in the case of moving produce out of the rain on a festival, that is prohibited, because produce left on a roof does not entail suspension of a mitzvah, such as study in the study hall. But on Shabbat, where there is the possibility that leaving the sacks in their current location will lead to suspension of study in the study hall, it is acceptable to remove them even via windows and ladders. Or perhaps it can be argued to the contrary, here in the case of the produce on the roof, when there is the issue of loss of the produce, you say it is not permitted. There, in the case of clearing out sacks on Shabbat, where there is no issue of loss of produce, should it not all the more so be prohibited to lower them via windows and ladders? No resolution was found, so the dilemma will stand unresolved. This will conclude part 1. And this is also, according to Rabbi Aharon Yehoshua Pessin from Ramat Beit Shemesh, I believe, his Sofer, which came out in 2006, around 2006, which is called Teku. He recorded and he cataloged all the Tekus, categorized whatever, he recorded them, compiled them, made a book called Teku. This, according to this book, which I'm studying, and also developing a work based on that book, this is the 51st Teku that occurs in the Babylonian Talmud.